we could go ahead and say that they're going live. We're now live.
Okay. Thank you. Good afternoon, and welcome to this meeting of the Strategic Licensing Committee. I'm obliged to inform you that this meeting is live streamed and being recorded. Members of the public will be able to view the meeting using the link on the agenda. We'll go straight into agenda item 1, which is apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we have apologies from Councillor Alex Wagner and also Councillor Viv Parry, and Councillor Ruth Houghton is substituting for her today.
Thank you very much. Minutes of the previous meeting. I'll move. Moved. Seconder. Seconder, Councillor Mosley. Thank you very much. All in favour? Thank you.
If we went on the committee, Mr. Chairman, do you abstain?
Yes. Right. Okay. Move on to item 3. Public question time. Are there any public questions? None. So we'll move on to item 4, disposable pecuniary interests. Members are reminded that they must not participate in the discussion or voting on any matter in which they have a disposable pecuniary interest and should leave the room prior to the commencement of the debate. Are there any such declarations?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
May I check, please? I'm the holder of a small lottery licence for a local charity. Does that impact on item 6, the policy services?
I can't tell you whether you should abstain or declare that as a disposable pecuniary interest. That's a matter for you. You can abstain from.
Before we move on to item 5, can I just go around the room? Because it's a new committee, so I think it might be helpful if we all know who each other is. I'm Roy Holcroft. I'm covering market rate in the county. We'll go straight on.
I'm Mandy Beaver. I'm the licensing manager for Shropshire Council. And to my right is?
I'm Jessica Moores. I'm the public protection officer on the licensing everything else side, so not taxis, but everything else that we need.
I'm Ross O'Neill. I'm the public protection officer working in licensing, dominating premises licenses, so hearings, the application centre, and yourself, as well as the office of presenting the case.
I'm Louise Prince, solicitor, legal advisor to Strategic Licensing Committee, but also to the Licensing and Safety Act Subcommittee, the Licensing Act 2003 Subcommittee, and also to the Licensing Panel.
We'll start with you, Gary.
Councillor Gary Burchett, representative by the business industries.
Councillor Mosley.
Sorry, Pam Mosley, I represent Lockmore in Shrewsbury. Thank you.
Chris Schofield, Streets.
Hi, I'm Sarah Townsend and I work in community services, and I'm going to be clerk in the meeting.
Good. Keith.
Kenny, sorry. I'm Kev Barley, expert.
I'm Ruth Houghton, councillor for Bishop's Castle, 32.
Okay. Keith. Rest.
Elliot Lynch, Councillor for Clovelly Upland.
Thank you.
Mike Isherwood, Oswald Street West.
Robert Tyndall, Brown Key Division.
Simon Jones, Shawbury Division, and Vice Chair of this committee.
Nigel Lumby from Old Brighton.
Dave Trevelyan, hi. Thank you very much, everybody. Now we all know each other, we can get down to the business. I'll ask Louise to introduce the appointment to the Licensing and Safety Subcommittee, which we're going to choose today.
Thank you, Chair. So the Licensing and Safety Act Subcommittee deals with all matters to do with taxi licensing, so drivers, vehicles and operators. There is delegation within the Constitution that delegates this power down to officer level, but on the odd occasion it is necessary for members to sit on the subcommittee to make decisions on drivers and operators. For the purposes of the appointments, they have to be politically balanced. The number of members that sit on the subcommittee is 5, and unlike the Licensing and Safety Act, the Licensing Act Subcommittee, these members are fixed for the 4-year period. So you need to vote today on 5 members, and they have to be politically balanced. So we need 3 Conservative, 1 Liberal Democrat and 1 Labour. We're also looking for substitutes today as well, again politically balanced. So if we start with the Conservative nominations, I need 3.
Mr. Chairman, if I may just ask a question. I hold Wolverhampton private hire licence, so should I be serving on the committee or should I abstain from that committee?
I can't tell you how you should act.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to serve the committee, but I want to make sure I wouldn't be causing any disruption to that I hold a licence.
So as far as I'm aware, if there is a compromise, a possible compromise from a public point of view, not necessarily from yours, where the public could interpret you serving on this committee having a detrimental effect on whatever they're up to, then you should.
Chair, I'm sorry as well, I've just seen Councillor Jones, the Vice Chair of this committee normally sits as Chair of the subcommittee.
Yeah, so I would propose, if, from the Conservative side, I'd be looking at Councillor Simon Jones, Councillor Lynch, and Chris. No, okay. Anybody else from the Conservative side? Peter Broomhall, Councillor Peter Broomhall, Elliot Lynch and Simon Jones are a proposal for the Conservatives.
May we have votes for those proposals? Do we need to vote on that?
We need to vote.
Yes. Please, if we can have votes for those nominations, and then we'll deal with the next.
Okay. Okay. All those in favour of those nominations? Thank you very much. Let's carry. Right. And the next one is.
We need 1 Liberal Democrat, please.
Sorry.
1 Liberal Democrat.
Volunteer.
I'll propose Councillor Viv Parry and I'll substitute for.
I'm afraid substitutes of this committee can't substitute for this subcommittee. It has to be a full member of this committee that can substitute.
In that case, in their absence, I'll propose Vivian Parry and substitute Richard to be confirmed by themselves, if that's okay.
We need to vote on that as well.
Those in favour? Thank you. And the next one should be, so that's Councillor Vivian Parry. And the next one?
Labour. One Labour, please. Thank you.
Councillor Kevin Pardy. Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you very much.
Do we have a substitute, sorry, for Councillor Pardy?
Councillor Mosley?
Yeah.
Yeah, yes.
We need to vote. I can't.
Have we got?
I can't disagree.
Can we vote on that? All those in favour? Substitutes.
And then substitutes for Conservatives, please.
Subs for Conservatives, how many?
3, please.
3. So Gary Burchett, 1, Chris Cofield, 2, and who else? One more, Councillor Nigel Lumbey. Okay, thank you.
We need to vote again.
All those
Sorry.
in favour?
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you very much. Sorry, it's painful, but it has to be done.
Right, moving on. If there's anything else, no? Right. Consultation on the Gambling Act 2005, a policy statement, page 22 to 25, pages 5 to 152, and I'll ask Mandy Beaver to introduce.
Thank you, Chair. So the Shropshire Council has a legal requirement to consult on a gambling policy every 3 years. The existing one is due to run out at the end of 2020, get this right in a minute, end of January 2022. And we are just now hoping to start the consultation on the existing policy. Officers have done a revision of the policy as it stands, incorporated all the risk of harm and the additional information that the Gambling Commission have required us to do within that document. And what I brought the policy proposal to this committee for today is to ask for agreement to go out to consultation in the public domain. We will review the consultation responses and we'll bring all of those back to the committee in October of this year with a view to reviewing the revised policy document. And that document, once revised and agreed by this committee, will have to go before full council. So we'll have to get full council at Christmas. With a view to it coming into effect at the end of January 2022. So the recommendation on this particular report for today is that you agree for us to go out to formal consultation with that document as it stands, with a view to having an opportunity to amend anything within there after the consultation period when we come back in October. I'm open to anybody for any questions.
Councillor Simon Jones.
Yeah, thank you. Just one question, and then I'm quite happy to actually move that we agree this revised draft goes out for consultation. The one question I was going to ask was, do we get reading the report? Obviously, we liaise with other bodies for getting background information about gambling. Do we liaise with GamCare or charities that actually do work for GamCare?
Yes, we do, and we've been doing some more proactive work recently to try and get some more charitable organisations that we know that deal with the harm side of the risk of gambling involved with that. So we have a duty as part of this to actually directly consult with them, and we've just been trying to work with other agencies to identify more charitable organisations this time than we've ever had before. So there are a few more, especially the last sort of 15 months where problem gambling to do with gambling from home and that sort of thing, rather than going to the bookmakers doing that, albeit the gambling requirements of Shropshire Council and the policy that it covers, it very much covers your bookmakers, your tracks, your betting, your bingo halls, that sort of thing, rather than the online gambling world. The responsibility for that is for the Gambling Commission themselves. But we are working with those agencies to try and make sure that they have an input into our policy document as well.
That's great. Thank you for that reply. And as I say, I'm happy to recommend that this Appendix 1 should be approved for consultation.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just ask Mandy, as a new member of the committee, what are the main differences or improvements on the previous policy particularly in relation to aims 1 and 3, preventing gambling being a source of crime or disorder and protecting children and other vulnerable persons from harm or exploitation.
It's very much been driven by the Gambling Commission this time, and it is that the risk of harm that's been at the forefront of what they're asking us to make sure our policy covers. I think from the Gambling Commission's perspective, the online gambling world is a major problem, but we haven't got responsibility for that as a local authority. But their wider drive is that the theme across all of the policy world and the documents and what we're all aiming to achieve is reducing the risk and identifying those hotspots and the hotspot areas. This is why we've got the area profile within here, which identifies all the premises that we're responsible for as an organisation, and we can overlay that with the areas of the town that those particular hotspots are in, and then we can work with that information and with the other agencies and organisations to make sure that they're all involved when we're identifying any particular risk, whether that's police, whether that's social services, whatever that might be, alcohol awareness, that sort of thing, and we can bring those agencies together when we identify those hotspots. And this is why we have the area profile, and we publish the area profile so that all agencies are fully aware of, we've identified the areas where they all exist. So it's just a case of bringing it all together with the Gambling Commission and taking that forward and then driving it in a way that the Gambling Commission wants. And it's about that identifying the risk of harm.
Obviously, I'm new to this as well. Is this our opportunity to ask questions about specifically what's in there and the way it's written, or is that not our consultation at this stage?
If you've read the document and there are items that you want to query, then that's fine, you can do it now. Or if you want to wait as the consultation rolls on and we get feedback from that probably at October, I think, would be the time to really tear the subject apart and get as much information out of it as you possibly can. So I would say the time to do most of the questioning will be when the results of the consultation come back in October. Okay, thank you. Right, I've got a proposer for a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Burton. Take the votes. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. We've got transport statutory taxes on private vehicle standards, and that again is
Thank you, Chair. So, Department for Transport introduced the statutory standards last year, and they contacted all local authorities with a view to having the statutory standards form part of the Hackney Carriage and private hire licensing policies that all local authorities have, but there's no legal requirement for us to have a policy for Hackney Carriage and private hire licensing like there is for the Gambling Act and the Licensing Act. So Shropshire Council doesn't have to have this policy, but we do because it sets out the way we're going to process applications and the decision-making process for anybody involved in the Hackney Carriage and private hire licensing trade. And also from an appeals point of view, for any courts or barristers that get involved with the appeals route, it just sets out how Shropshire Council will deal with applications and the decision-making process. The existing Hackney Carriage and private hire licensing policy is due to go into informal consultation in October of this year, with a view to it going into formal consultation early next year. And what I'm proposing today is that we are introducing the statutory standards from a day-to-day processing point of view, liaising with the trade and that information, and all the decision-making process from now going forward will incorporate the statutory standards And if there's any contradiction between the existing policy and the statutory standards will take precedent over the existing policy. And that will be put out for the trade information so that they're fully aware, with a view to incorporating the actual statutory standards themselves in the formal consultation period of that policy document. And just for new members, the Hackney Carriage and Private Hire policy, unlike the Gambling Act policy, we do leave a 12-month window to get that through formal consultation, the committee processes, amendments to it, and it is a lengthy process, that particular one, and this is one of the drivers why we haven't done a formal consultation on the standards themselves, because at the end of the day they are law right now, and this is why we're taking it forward in the formal review of the whole of the policy in the early part of next year, but we will start the informal process in the autumn, so October time, with the actual trade representatives. But the intention is that the website is going to be amended, all documentation going out to do with any decision-making processes. So if any decisions made under my delegated authority to give a warning to a driver or revoke a licence or anything like that, all of that information will be given to whoever it is to advise them about the statutory standards, and that they will be used as part of that decision-making process. And that they will have it all documented down for them and have that available to them in the interim period until we get it through the formal consultation. So the purpose of the recommendation is, there's 3 recommendations for today, and I was just hoping that you would agree to that based on what I've said in terms of the formal consultation and how we're going to deal with it in the interim. But before you make any decisions and recommendations, I'm open to questions if anybody's got any.
Thank you, Chair. You said that the Department of Transport standards, which override anything we may have, that you will make sure that all people who need to know, the operators, the licensees, will know about it. Will you actually be writing specifically to them, telling them where to seek the information? You won't be sending it to them obviously directly, but will you be actually communicating individually to each licence holder to tell them where to look?
So what we have is we have the part of the website that they're all fully aware of, so we'll make sure the information is on there. We regularly do taxi trade updates, so it'll go out as part of the update, and any individuals that are involved, if they're being referred for a delegated decision to be made, and some of you will be familiar about the PAL process that is run by myself. If they're being referred to there, they have a letter that will explain to them why they're being referred and exactly what will be used in the decision making. We'll just add an additional section in there about the DFT standards.
Yeah, I was just wondering, is this are these changes going to improve our dealings with licenses from Wolverhampton?
The DFT standards are about safeguarding and making sure that people who hold a licence are threatened proper, and that, how we deal with them if they get are convicted of an offence and that sort of thing. It's about that rather than the cross-border hiring. It's about the ones that we actually license ourselves, and the decision-making process for the ones that we license. Anybody who's licensed elsewhere, we will have to refer to the Home Authority, who are bound by the same DFT standards as we are, but they'll have to make a decision if they are the holder of the issuer of the licence.
Right, so I'll move that from the chair. Is there a second? Thank you, Councillor Ushoy. And to the vote, all those in favour, please. Right, that's unanimous. And for a change, Mandy Beaver is going to tell us all about the mobile homes requirement for a manager of site to be fit and proper person, brackets England Regulations 2020. That's a mouthful.
Thank you, Chair. I may call on Jess's help for this one, I'll be honest with you. During the coronavirus pandemic last year, and I know we're still going through it, but at a point in time, this legislation came into effect. And unfortunately, lots of local authorities across the country were not aware that this was actually coming into effect at that time. So when we were actually notified about this, we were a little bit on the back foot in terms of implementing it and getting it through. So cards on the table here, it was a last minute. We were planned to bring it before the last strategic committee, which would have been before the 1st of July, but that got adjourned till today. So we had to sort of replan everything, and we're doing a little bit of a retrospective request for permission and your agreement today, because we had to bring it into effect from the 1st of July, because that's what the law stated. So, that's where we're at in terms of that, and that's why the report is really asking for retrospective permission as opposed to asking permission to go ahead with it. So the mobile homes regulations put a requirement on local authorities to make sure that the people managing these residential sites are fit and proper people to hold the licence for that site. Similarly, taxi wills and other parts of licensing now, with this theme about being a fit and proper person to actually operate these businesses, is something that we're coming across all the time now in changes of legislation. So this is just part for the residential caravan sites. The mobile homes regulations brought in the fact that people who now manage these sites have to be fit and proper, and there's an application process that they have to submit to the local authorities in order for us to agree whether they're fit and proper or not. Jess, do you want to come in and just sort of explain the process that what we're going to implement in the interim?
Okay, so the application form and the process that we've put in place at the moment has been done in consultation with MHCLG, so it will replicate more or less what most other local authorities will put in place. The form has been consulted on with them, the information that we gather has been consulted on with them. The application is lengthy and requires them to provide lots of information to us in terms of DBSs, proof of right to work, information about how financially sound the site is, whether or not the person proposed to manage that site has contravened any sort of relevant law in similar areas, so housing, planning, and other things that might impact on managing a residential caravan site. So it's not just providing official documentation to us, they have also got to provide some written information about why they are a suitable person to manage that site. The reason behind it is that a consultation and a review of the Mobile Homes Act 2013 in 2017 found that residential sites generally were receiving a lot of complaints about how they were being managed, and that perhaps the people who were managing them didn't have the professional experience or expertise to do so, and that was impacting negatively on people that lived there. The power to require a fit and proper person has always been in the Mobile Homes Act, but it wasn't enacted. So the outcome of that review was that that power was enacted, and that has resulted in these regulations. A little bit last minute, I think, on behalf of everybody involved, not just us from the government perspective as well. So what we have done is we will be putting in an application process, or we have put in an application process which meets all of the requirements of the regulations. So we are asking for all the information that's required. We'll go through the checking process for everybody that we need to as far as the regulations are concerned. The regulations give us the power to have a determination policy and a fees policy to charge both an annual fee and an application fee. What we haven't done is put that in place at the moment because this is so new, we don't know what it's going to take to put that in place to manage it, and therefore what it's going to cost. So it would have been unrealistic of us to rush through a fees policy at the moment and start charging people for something that we weren't certain about. So what we're proposing is that we will get to know this process, put it in place so that we're meeting the regulations. All the people that are required to apply, we have contacted and told you need to apply. Once we've got all of that in place, then we will start putting together a determinations policy and a fees policy that we'll bring back to you before it will be consulted on, and then it aim to be fully in place by this time next year.
Comments, Councillor Schofield.
So is this in line with what the default government's done?
I don't know is the answer, I'm afraid. I think that the requirement for a fit and proper person is something that has been involved with not just these England regulations. I don't know whether they have them in place at the moment though. I know that it is something that across the board has been raised as an issue in terms of poor management of residential sites.
Thank you, sir. Just reading through 5.4, the requirements of being a competent person. It's actually sort of 5.5. Yeah, 5.4. But you have to demonstrate a history of compliance with the site license, a history of maintenance of the site, and a history of management of the site. But how can you demonstrate that if you're a new applicant applying for a job on the site? So it's asking to have something that you can't have until you've got a competent person.
Those are the requirements of the regulations rather than our requirements. So from our perspective, it's an existing site, of which we've got about 31 at the moment will be applied, and we have got that history ourselves to check. If it's a new person, they are required to tell us how they intend to do that. And that's something that we'll have to monitor on an ongoing basis. Yes, yeah.
Thanks, James. Yeah, thank you. I'd like to move recommendations of 2.1, 2.2 as printed. All those in favour?
Right, we now have item 9, which is the exercise of delegated powers, the report of the transactional and licensing team manager.
Thank you, Chair. So this, the exercise of delegated powers report is a standard report that I will bring to every committee meeting or strategic committee meeting that we have, and it's just an opportunity for me to provide the committee with some numbers really of how many applications we've had and the types of applications that we've been processing since the previous committee, and that you know, you can see what sort of type of applications we're getting in the work that the team are undertaking on an ongoing basis. So it's only, in terms of a recommendation, it's only for to be noted, but it just gives you a picture really of what the team are doing, and an idea of sort of how many applications and the sort of type of applications and the enforcement work that's being done. And we also include in this report the sort of subcommittees and things that are held. So really, again, I'm open to any questions that you may have, but you'll get used to this report for those new members. This is one that you'll see every time we have a meeting. Anybody got any questions?
Okay, we'll move forward then to date for next meeting will be the Wednesday the 6th of October at 10 o'clock. Yeah, there is one other issue which isn't on your agendas, but you'll be aware that anybody doing a licensing hearing has to be trained to do that, and we need to organise some training sessions. And what I've been asked is what day is best for you, basically, and that includes Saturdays. So do you want to? Can we come to some agreement here today? Do you want a daytime meeting or an evening meeting? Which would be better for you?
Sorry, Chairman, can I ask, is this a virtual meeting or a real meeting?
Ideally, we'd like you all in the same room because it's just more interactive that way and easier to sort of work through the scenarios and do the demonstrations that way if you're actually in the same room rather than it being on a Teams thing. The purpose of it is for consistency of decision making. There's a requirement in law that you have to be trained, and if we do get to an appeal at any point in time, which we have been bitten by in the past, once you've been through the training, if you're ever asked as a witness to justify a decision making of that training, of the decision, you've had the training that backs up that decision making process, and that's the requirement for you to have had the training whilst sitting on these committees. That's the importance of it. Councillor Jones, sorry.
Sorry, I was just going to ask, is this in-house training or is it bringing a barrister in?
At the moment, this one for this year, we decided to just do it in-house, because at the time when we were discussing the training, we weren't sure whether we were going to be able to meet in person, whether it was going to be on Teams or what it was. So we decided just to run this one ourselves for this year. But it's an annual training we try to keep up with, and so it's just now we've got a new committee and some fresh faces. We just want to relaunch that again, so we know that everybody that is being put forward for the subcommittees has had that training and knows what the requirements are and is confident in making those decisions.
If I can come back on that, I would certainly recommend, particularly for the new members, that we have some form of training from a barrister as we've had in the past. I think you know who I'm thinking about. Certainly, I think that training does give more impact than certainly to new members of the committee.
And that's fine, I can arrange that, that's no problem. But in the interim, these subcommittees are still ongoing, and until we can get that arranged, we still need to have had members trained that are going to be sitting on those committees.
Councillor Schofield.
Can I ask how many sessions we're talking about?
For a training session, hopefully just one per year normally. A couple of hours for the hearings training.
Thanks, Joe. To answer your initial question, an evening session would be best for me.
Yes, actually, Simon stole my suggestion that we employ one of the external QCs. Extremely valuable because the one guy we had, as he explained, they're a bit like prostitutes. You pay them, they represent both sides. And it was actually the insights he brought. Was it the lantern we had that quite a while ago? It was extremely valuable because he brought insight from the other side. A second, third and fourth suggestion
Chair, if I might just come in, part of the issue is budget as well. Unfortunately, barristers don't offer their services very often for free. So I don't know what the training budget is for this year.
Just on that. Councillor Pardy.
Sorry, excuse me. I was just going to, literally on that point about the fees that barristers in charge. Could that not be included in the costs of licensing? Licensing itself is supposed to be non-profit making, but cover its costs. So would not training also be considered as one of the costs that should be covered by the licensing?
Yes, and if it's coming out of the licensing budget rather than the members' budget, it would be costing into licensing fees. But as a rule, member training tends to come out of the members' training budget. But yeah, I hear what you're saying. And what we can do is make some inquiries as to how much it's going to cost and who can afford to pay
it. Councillor Farley.
Chair, I sometimes find chairs are too kind at times, and I think the best thing, you're not going to get a date today because we're all going to be very different. I just think you should throw out some dates on an email and see how it goes.
I can do that, that's not a problem. Is just a general feeling, really. Is it better in an evening? Do you want a Saturday thing? How do you want this to be? Because we're throwing out dates, sort of. And in an evening, are we talking sort of 6 till 8, or are we talking 7 till 9? That's the sort of gist I really need to get now in order to put some dates out to everybody. Any thoughts?
Probably evening meeting is certainly better. 6 till 8, something like
that.
Okay. Yeah, just to say Saturdays are a complete no-go for me. So.
Okay, so currently we're looking at between 6 and 8 p.m. on a weeknight. Fine, we'll get some dates together and email you, and if you can make it, you can make it. If not, it'll be recorded. Yeah.
Can I ask, is this the same training you offered as part of the members induction?
No, it's not. It's specific to hearings training. As part of the members induction, there was 3 separate training sessions, which is another thing that I know that the committee's team are taking up with members of the committee, for those who haven't attended any of those other sessions, to make sure that they have, because there was a safeguarding one on the Licensing Act and one on taxi-related legislation. And as part of that committee, there's an involvement with all 3, so you all need to be aware of that. So if any of you haven't already attended one of those induction sessions, you will be required to at some point. But this one I'm specifically talking about today is in respect of the hearings training and sitting on a subcommittee making those decisions, because those are the decisions that we get challenged on.
Okay, that closes the meeting. But before we go, I'd just like to say a special word of thanks to Mandy for coming in with one leg US or a broken leg